the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down. And when I saw it, I considered it well, and I looked on it and received instruction. A little slumber, a little sleep, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. So the man of God is speaking, and he's considering the field of the lazy man. And he said he went there, and actually my devotion this morning is titled The Field of a Lazy Person. I went by the field of the lazy man and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. Another translation, I think the NLT, it says, lacking common sense, the man devoid of common sense. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles. Its stone wall was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. Like he went there, saw what the lazy man is all about. And while he was still standing there and looking at how, messed up the field of this person is, he got this revelation, this insight that a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, so shall your poverty come like a prowler and your need like an armed man. And this not necessarily the field in terms of a field, but this is actually akin to the life, just the life of a lazy man. And because we're talking about prayer, think about this also in the dimension of prayer. Because prayer, again, is where we find ourselves as believers. That should be our constant. We talked about it yesterday, but that's the same place we find ourselves procrastinating and be like, I'll pray tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll seek God tomorrow. And so surely and so truly that your life needs a turnaround. And the only way to transact, the only way to get that turnaround is in the place of prayer. But then you keep procrastinating because of a spirit that is called laziness, and even a spirit that is called procrastination, and a spirit that is called slumber. And so your life becomes like this kind of a field where things that are not supposed to be overgrown are overgrown, where weeds of the enemy are so overgrown, where the enemy just keeps on dumping things in your life, in your territory. And because you just cannot beat the laziness and say, let me pray, this becomes of you. This becomes the life that you're living, where everything is just dumped in your life, in your direction. And you're saying, why is it that bad things always just come to me? But in actual sense, you're not sensitive. You're not alert. You're in deep sleep. You're in deep slumber. You're not praying. You have no spiritual antennae, and your antennaes went off a long time ago. The day you kept on pushing and saying, I'll pray. And God has been bidding you, come, my daughter, come, my son, let's commune, come to the place of prayer. Come, let's talk about it in the place of prayer. But you keep on pushing it ahead and ahead, because in actual sense, prayer is work for sure. It's not, I get it when people say, I'm getting lazy, because prayer is work, and you've got to be intentional about it. You've got to prioritize it. You've got to make a determination in your life. The same way rich and wealthy people, they just make a determination and say, tomorrow I'll be here, I'll be investing here. And whatever happens, they rise up and they rise to the occasion. That's the same thing about prayer. That we just can't be pushing it forward. We just can't be pushing it ahead. We've got to wake up and pray. We've got to call upon the name of God while he still may be found. The book of Proverbs 26, he says, a sluggard says, there is a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish, and he is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly. Imagine a sluggard buries his hand in the dish and he's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard says there's a lion in the road, so they're not going to get out of bed. They're not going to get out of the house. They'll be there because there's a lion. But somebody that is hardworking will go and face off that supposed lion because it's not there. A sluggard, even spiritually speaking, will be like, this mountain is too big. This mountain cannot be moved. I need a prayer team concerning this. And this, because nobody wants to pray with me, I'm just going to let it continue. And then what? And consume you? You've got to rise up. If you're the only one in your family that knows God, that is your mountain. You've got to rise up and uproot it. You cannot be making excuses. There's a lion in the road. There's a fierce lion roaming in the streets. That's why I'm not praying. That's why, because this lion is roaring so hard. No. Stop making the excuses, because your field is slowly becoming like that field that we've read about in the book of Proverbs 24. Because this man went and considered the field of this lazy man and said, my goodness, things are overgrown. The walls are broken. Nobody is bringing them up and constructing them. Because we understand from the book of Isaiah 58, when we pray and fast, that is where people are called rebuilders of walls. You're called a rebuilder of walls because you are able to pray and fast. So the lazy man's field, the walls are broken. Nobody's rising up to rebuild them because there's no prayer whatsoever. And so sometimes when we're looking at our spiritual lives, we're wondering, why is there stunted growth? Why is it that nothing is moving? Why is it that when I speak, nothing seems to be moving? Why is it that I cannot even command a headache to move? It's because consider the field of a lazy man. Everything is overgrown. They don't like to lift a finger, lifting a hand, burying the hand in the dish and bringing it up to the mouth. It's such a heavy task for a lazy man. Oh, how can people pray past 10 minutes, and all that kind of conversation? You go there and find out. You go into your closet and find out how people pray like that. Because the Spirit of God, He is our helper. And the Word of God in the book of Matthew talks about this. When people slept, while men slept, Matthew 13, the enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat. And Jesus explaining this enemy says the enemy is the devil. And this is a caution for us against spiritual negligence, against carelessness, against being complacent, being lazy. Because slowly by slowly, the enemy just begins to introduce something. This field of a lazy man did not just become this overnight. It was a week. A season of rain came. He said, I'll do it the next season. He said, then the next season came. He said, I'll do it the other season. And slowly by slowly, by the time this man, the wise man, is coming to consider this field, time has gone. This lazy man has been procrastinating until now there's nothing that he can rise up to do. But you've got to rise up the same way you slept. It's the same way you need to wake up. And seriously, begin to cultivate your life. Begin to cultivate your spiritual life. Because slowly by slowly, as we lazy around, we become comfortable living a prayerless life. At the beginning, it's okay. You feel like, I feel an urge to pray. And you say, I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow, there's such an urgency again. You feel, I need to pray. But then slowly by slowly, as you keep pushing it forward, as you allow the laziness spirit and the slumber spirit to eat into your life, there's a time you wake up and it's comfortable. You're comfortable not praying. It's become your norm. But God says this morning we need to rise up from the slumber. We need to wake up. We need to stop that spiritual negligence. We need to stop and rise up and be alert, because the enemy is planting. He comes in the night, he plants. He comes when we're in sleep, he plants. He comes when we are not alert, he keeps on planting. So that when we rise up, we're like, there's a lion, there's a fierce lion, and I'm not able to face it. But you are able. You've just got to rise to the occasion and call upon God. Jabez would have been comfortable. He was named pain all his life. That's all he knew. But the day he came to his senses, the day he understood that there can be a change, he went into the place of prayer. This day, God is calling you to understand that there can be a change. That you don't have to live your life in pain like that. That you don't have to live in a famine, in a drought like that. That you can come to the place of prayer and ask and knock and seek while he still may be found, and you will find him. God help us so that our spiritual lives do not look like this life or this field of a lazy man. This lazy man that is devoid of understanding. He has no understanding. He's likened to a man that has no understanding. So his field all overgrown with thorns, surface covered with nettles. How do you even begin? I don't know so much about farming, but this kind of a farm, I mean, how do you begin? Stone wall broken down. And this man considered it so well. And he said, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. That's how the enemy keeps on dumping spirits and demons. Every time when you thought you were struggling with this, then you wake up this next morning, there's another struggle. He just keeps on dumping because he has seen a field of a lazy man, a man that is spiritually asleep. And he knows this is where we can dump things. So when demons are cast out from wherever, when they're looking for a habitation, they find a home, a residence in your possession because you're spiritually asleep. God, wake us up. May God help us to just wake up from the deep, deep slumber